It was a wild one in Lexington with the Wildcats pulling off a late win against Tennessee, 29-26. We bring in Kevin McGuffey for some instant analysis. Kevin joins us from Last Word on College Football. So, Kevin, I'm guessing that the heart palpitations have slowed down just a bit for you to help us break this one down.
Yeah, just a little bit. As I was saying to you before we got started, this was probably the most Kentucky victory ever, nearly snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. But they won. They're 6-2, and they're bowl eligible. So everyone in Lexington should be pretty happy tonight.
All right, folks. So if you didn't see the game, it was on the SEC Network tonight. At least check out the final play. It's not necessarily a play that Kevin's going to be fond of, but it all ends well on the Hail Mary attempt by Tennessee that was completed down to the 3-yard line. Again, the Wildcats win at Tennessee, still unbeaten or winless, I should say, in the SEC. So kind of take us through this one and your thoughts about the Wildcats and how they were able to hold off the Volunteers.
Well, Kentucky got off to a bad start. First play of the game, fumble by Benny Snell, led to a Tennessee field goal. They managed to keep Tennessee out of the end zone for a quarter and a half, so that extended that streak of theirs to 15 quarters. Then for the biggest part of the game, the biggest thing with Kentucky was turnovers. They had 4 fumbles. Each one, 3 of the 4 led to Tennessee points. However, the positive for Kentucky was that they were all field goals. And, Kentucky led 21-20 at the half. Tennessee broke out in the second quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns. As we talked about earlier in the week, Ty Chandler, who was the backup to John Kelly, I said would probably come in and have a career game, and he went for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that turned out to be prophetic. But the fourth quarter, the defense really stepped up, and Steven Johnson got injured late third quarter, early fourth quarter, went out with a shoulder injury. Drew Barker came in for a couple of series, fumbled on his first series. That led to another field goal. Then Johnson came back in, and after the defense held him, the Cats drove down the field, and Johnson ended up getting the winning touchdown on an 11-yard run, and then the Cats went for 2 after that and got the 2-point conversion on a little razzle-dazzle play where they're out of the Wildcat. Benny Snell ended up catching a pass from Johnson for the 2-point conversion, and then, as you said, they had to hold on at the end after Tennessee started, at their 25. Kentucky had them 4th and 26, and sure enough, Tennessee converted on a 4th and 26. I was having flashbacks to the NFC Championship game from a few years ago. But and then a couple plays later, as you said, they got it down somewhere around the 40, 45-yard line and went for that Hail Mary and got caught at the 3-yard line. And thankfully for Kentucky fans, they stopped him 3 yards short because, as I said, I've seen this so many times over the years with Kentucky. But this one, like I said, they won. They're 6-2. They're bowl, like I said, they're bowl eligible. Well, neat stat. That's only the second time in Kentucky football history that they've been bowl eligible by the end of in October. So the other time was 1977. So, like I said, as we talked about earlier this week, they got this win. They've got Ole Miss next week, Ole Miss Vandy, and then Georgia and Louisville after that. So, like I said, they're bowl eligible. Now they're just playing for a location. They can pick off some more wins. They can move up on that food chain on the bowl games.
Kevin McGuffey joining us from Last Word on College Football to break down Kentucky's 29-26 win over Tennessee. As Kevin mentions, the Cats are bowl eligible at 6-2. And would make it to postseason play for a second consecutive year. And let's not be too critical of the Cats on run defense. Ty Chandler is a guy that Tennessee fans have been waiting to see. He's a highly recruited running back out of Nashville, 5th rated at his position. We've talked a lot to our colleague Mike Laval from Last Word on College Football about Ty Chandler and what's expected of him. Probably a more talented guy actually than John Kelly, just not the experience and the prowess and the physical build at this stage of his career, but had a nice first starting effort for the Vols. On the flip side, you guys relied almost exclusively on the run, just not much happening in the passing game with 50 or 60 yards passing, but Benny Snell carried the load.
Yeah, 27 carries, 180 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he was pretty much the man tonight. He did have the one fumble, but he more than made up for it. Plus, caught that 2-point conversion. As you said, up until like the fourth quarter, Kentucky only tried to throw the ball 9 or 10 times, and then they came out on a couple straight series, like 2 straight series, and threw the ball almost exclusively, and ended up going 3 and out. But this was, the Wildcat has not worked in some games this year. The running game has not worked this year, but tonight was one of them. Kentucky was able to run against Tennessee, and on the same side, Tennessee was able to run against Kentucky. But yeah, Benny Snell was really good tonight, and Steven Johnson had added another 84 yards, and then that go ahead touchdown as well. So big night running the ball for the Cats.
So, Kevin, you mentioned 6-2 record. You're bowl eligible. Of course, you took on Georgia Tech last year in the Tax Slayer Bowl. 4 games left to play. Let's do a little projection here. You mentioned the stretch drive. Ole Miss, I'm going to give you about a 60% chance of winning that game. The Rebels, obviously, porous on defense, but have the explosive offense. Their backup quarterback, Shea Patterson, had a big game today against Arkansas. Of course, the Georgia game, I would in most occasions say that you got a puncher's chance. And of course you do, because no team's infallible. But the way Georgia is just mowing down decent opponents at this point, decent teams, wow. They look just head and shoulders above anyone in the SEC Eastern Division. The other games, Vanderbilt, again, it's on the road. Vandy not playing well, but at the same time, you can't take that one for granted. Louisville not playing well as well. So that's pretty much of a toss-up game, I would think. So 8-4, maybe you steal 3 of the last 4 games and really come out looking good at 9-3 regular season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Pretty much everything you said there. I think, with Ole Miss, like I said, with the backup quarterback, it's probably going to be an offensive, probably light up the scoreboard next Saturday. First one to 40 points wins. I think I saw something tonight that, Ole Miss hasn't won a game this year unless they've scored over 40 points. So, so hopefully for Kentucky's sake, hopefully the defense will be able to step up. And as you said, Vandy, it's probably a toss-up. They looked, I thought they looked pretty good today, even in a loss against South Carolina, who's a South Carolina team who's really, really improving. Of course, Kentucky did, beat them down in Columbia earlier this season. As you said, Georgia, that might be one of those games you just go down there and hope to not get anybody hurt, because, like I said, they're, probably going to be number 2, I would think, in the polls this week behind Alabama. And then, like I said, Louisville, you just never know what team's going to show up. Obviously they won at Florida State last week, but then, Florida State then goes and gets blown out of Boston College this weekend. It was a Thursday night, I think. And then, of course, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in that one, as we saw last year where Kentucky, was 4-touchdown underdog and came in and won. But yeah, I think 8-4. If they went 2-2 down the stretch, if they, say they beat Ole Miss and Louisville and then lose the 2 games on the road, 8-4 is going to put them in a pretty good bowl game. I think 9-3 would probably have them, somewhere maybe Outback Bowl, maybe a New Year's Day Bowl, which would be a huge, feather in the cap for this coaching staff.
Consider where this division was just a year or 2 ago. Things change rather quickly. Tennessee looked to be on the ascension. Florida won 2 consecutive division championships, and we may have a Georgia winner, which it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point, with Kentucky and South Carolina in the 9-3, 8-4 range in 2nd and 3rd place. So pretty interesting occurrences in 2017 in the SEC Eastern Division. Kevin McGuffey joining us from Last Word on College Football. Please join him right there with our friends Mike Laval, Donald King, and Tony Siracusa as they cover college football right there on Last Word. Kentucky defeats Tennessee 29-26. The Cats are bowl eligible, and we'll be looking to see where they land in postseason play. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to come on and talk about a win, especially a big one. A big one like this. Only the second time since 1984 that Kentucky's beat Tennessee. So it's a happy night here in the Big Blue Nation.